Turning now to the international newspapers, and we're taking a look at the results from Super Tuesday. Solange Prigent is with us to talk about who's coming out in good shape, coming out of these, 14 primaries in 14 different states and a caucus in Samoa.
Yeah, and the person who's coming out in great shape is Joseph Biden. The Washington Post tells us that he has won in some 9 states, the latest being Texas. And the paper says that last-minute deciders played a definitive role in finally deciding to go with Biden after candidates Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg backed out of the race and endorsed him. Now, the cartoonist Bruce Plante of the Tulsa World has picked up on this sort of last-minute indecision by voters. In his cartoon, you have one voter saying, not on second thought, but on seventh thought. Another wishing they had whiteout to erase their previous choice. And another still in line saying the reason that the voting is taking so long is that Democrats are trying to decide what candidate is the most electable and winnable against Donald Trump.
Okay, yeah, not an easy one. I do relate to that cartoon, but it was a great night for Joe Biden. Papers now, in fact, saying that he is the front runner again. The New York Post saying it is now a 2-man race.
Indeed, and the New York Post today has a picture of a hand coming out of the grave. It's supposed to be Joe Biden's. They say that thanks to Biden's Super Tuesday, the man who was left for dead just a week or two ago is back in the race, and it could, even though they say it could be tight at the convention. And it's fun to note as well, on the bottom of the page, the Post refers to its article about the $500 million that Michael Bloomberg put in what the paper calls Bloomy's Billions bomb, and his bet could be, this was his bet, that he could be the centrist candidate instead of Biden. The Bloomberg campaign, according to New York Magazine, said they're now thinking of what to do after his dismal, or what they call a rock falling from a precipice performance. He only won in the Samoa territories. Now, the site also notes that Elizabeth Warren is living her worst case scenario, is what they call it, having come in third in her home state.
Okay, so quite a lot of focus on Joe Biden and his comeback, if you like. But what about Bernie Sanders? How is his Super Tuesday shaping up?
Well, as the LA Times tells us, the Associated Press has called California for Bernie Sanders. Now, the margin of this, and if it proves true, it's the margin that we need to look at because they are not definitive results. It's the actual percentage of the win that's important, or the number of delegates that will come out of it. It could, if the margin is big, it could be a major win for Sanders. He's been hurt by this surge of Biden's. But the LA Times tells us the fact that AP called California so early after polls close is a sign that the margin might be big, possibly in the 10 to 15 percentage point.
Oh, interesting one. And in California in particular, that margin is of quite a lot of importance.
Yeah, and as Politico tells us, California has a huge number of delegates, 415 to be exact, and candidates, to put that in context, need around 1,500. So you're about at a third there with just California alone. So the optics of it are very important as well. Winning in such a big state, it would be a big win for Sanders, or winning a big margin, I should say. He lost in California to Hillary Clinton last time around. So we'll have to see to what extent he wins California. But as Steve Breen, the cartoonist of the San Diego Union Tribune, tells us, there's a division still within the party. In California, Sanders may still be that #1 winner among progressives, while as the party, as the establishment, the donkeys behind holding a big Biden sign, they are pulling hard for Joe Biden.
It is always a big question, though, and a lot of papers are looking at that as well, about how the Democrats might need to pull together once they have one candidate.
Yeah, the Washington Post has a rather humorous piece today, but where the columnist, Alexandra Petri, keeps repeating as if to herself how great Biden is, calling him the comeback kid, and sort of reminding herself he's great, that she was wrong for wanting more from Democrats, that now she'll focus on the fuzzy nostalgia sound of the words Biden-Obama. This nostalgia is also talked about in an article in 538, the statistics site. They say this nostalgia played a role among Southern voters. It explains that voters in the South are often more diverse, more religious, poorer as well than in other states, and that Sanders, in other regions rather, and that Sanders' economic plan may not have resonated in the South because for some it didn't seem possible. That there's a pragmatism and a moderate viewpoint in the South that people we're going for. Now, this need for practical politics is also the subject of an opinion piece in the New York Times today. Thomas Friedman says that such pragmatism is the winning ticket. He says Donald Trump won't be able to say on the day that it matters, not Super Tuesday, but Super Wednesday, that Donald Trump will not be able to say that he united America, whereas Biden will be pushing that.
Okay, so nostalgia, pragmatism, all a part of it. But you've spotted another article, Solange, that says really this race has gone to the dogs.
Yes. In The Conversation, the academic site, there is an academic that argues you can't trust a candidate who doesn't like dogs. And he notes that Donald Trump is the first...
That would be me out.
Yeah, me too. No, I like dogs, actually. He notes that Donald Trump is the first president since 1897 not to have had a dog. And another candidate who doesn't have a dog is Bernie Sanders. And the Sanders team even had to Photoshop dogs onto a Facebook post to show that he loves animals. There you have it right there. Now, Joseph Biden does have a dog. However, it is a German Shepherd, and The Conversation analyzes this, saying that German Shepherds come with their own baggage because Hitler had one. There you go. So they make that comparison, but fun or disturbing analysis aside, it's to be taken with a grain of salt because the dogs of Elizabeth Warren and Pete Buttigieg had very prominent roles in their campaigns, and it hasn't turned out or isn't turning out so well for them.
Okay, Solange, thanks a lot for that look at how the papers are reacting to those results from the Super Tuesday votes.